There are so many ways to build a PC. You can spend $300. You can spend $3,000. And somehow both are called a PC build. But what actually changes as you go up each level? What do you gain? What do you give up? And where should most people actually stop? In this video, we go through every level of PC builds, from a basic office setup with no GPU, all the way to a custom water-cooled dream machine that no one really needs, but everyone kind of wants. 7 levels, each one explained simply and honestly. Let's start from the beginning. Level 1, the basic office build. This is the most affordable PC you can build. It has no dedicated GPU, which means no separate graphics card. Instead, it uses what's called an iGPU, or integrated graphics. The iGPU is built directly into the CPU chip. It handles basic visual tasks without needing extra hardware. This kind of build is meant for simple, everyday use. Things like typing documents, sending emails, browsing the web, or joining a video call. That's it. Nothing more. A typical setup at this level might include an Intel Core, i3 or AMD, Ryzen 3 processor, 8 GB of RAM, and a basic SSD for storage. No RGB, no big cooler, just a clean, functional machine. Without a dedicated GPU, you cannot run modern games at any decent quality. You also can't do video editing or 3D rendering. The iGPU simply doesn't have enough power for that. But that's not the point of this build. If you're a student doing schoolwork, an office worker running spreadsheets, or someone who just needs a reliable PC for basic tasks, this build is more than enough. It's quiet, low power, and easy to maintain. The total cost is usually between $200 and $350 depending on where you buy. For what it does, that's great value. Most people who buy a pre-built office PC from a store are essentially getting this level of machine. Level 2, the home or everyday build. This is a small step up from the office build. The goal here is general purpose use, not just work, but also casual media consumption, light photo editing, and comfortable multitasking. You might still have an iGPU here, or a very entry-level dedicated GPU. The CPU gets a small upgrade, maybe an Intel Core i5 or AMD Ryzen 5. RAM bumps up to 16 GB, which makes a noticeable difference when you have many browser tabs open or are switching between apps. This build handles things like streaming 4K video, making video calls in HD, light Lightroom edits, or running a home server. It's a comfortable daily machine. Without a real GPU, you still can't game seriously. But you can play older or less demanding titles, think games from 2015 or earlier, or light indie games at low settings. The difference between level 1 and level 2 isn't dramatic, but it's the difference between just enough and actually comfortable. The extra RAM and slightly better CPU mean fewer slowdowns, fewer moments where the PC feels like it's struggling. This level is good for families who share one PC, people who work from home and also watch Netflix, or users who want a capable machine without spending a lot. Budget for this build is usually between $350 and $550. It's the most balanced option for people who don't game but still want a capable, modern PC. Level 3, the entry gaming build. This is where gaming officially starts. At this level, you get your first dedicated GPU, a real graphics card with its own memory, separate from the CPU. A typical entry gaming build might pair an AMD Ryzen 5 or Intel Core i5 with a GPU like the NVIDIA RTX 4060 or AMD RX 7600. You'll also want 16 GB of RAM and a decent SSD. Total cost is usually between $550 and $800. With a dedicated GPU, you can now run most modern games at 1080p. At medium to high settings, you can expect 60 frames per second in a wide range of titles. That's a comfortable, smooth gaming experience. Before having a dedicated GPU, gaming felt choppy and limited. With one, you suddenly have access to a whole new world of titles, and they actually look good. The downside is that this build is not future-proof for long. As games get more demanding, an entry GPU will start to struggle within 2 to 3 years. You might need to lower settings or accept lower frame rates over time. Also, this build is still not ideal for content creation. The CPU and RAM are capable, but not optimized for heavy video editing or 3D work. Still, for the price, an entry gaming build offers excellent value. If gaming is your main reason for building a PC and you're on a tight budget, this is your starting point. Level 4. The balanced build. This is the most popular tier among PC builders. It doesn't chase extreme performance. Instead, it tries to do everything well: gaming, working, and occasional creative tasks. At this level, you're looking at a mid-range CPU like an Intel Core i5 or i7, paired with a solid GPU like the RTX 4070 or RX 7700 XT. RAM goes up to 32 GB. You might also add a second SSD for extra storage. Total cost is typically between $900 and $1,400. This build handles 1080p of gaming at high to ultra settings easily. At 1440p, which is the resolution between Full HD and 4K, performance is still very good. Frame rates stay above 60 frames per second in most titles, often reaching 100 or more. For work, 32 GB of RAM makes multitasking smooth. You can run a browser, a video call, a coding environment, and music at the same time without any slowdown. The trade-off is that this build doesn't fully commit to anything. It's not the fastest for gaming, it's not the best for video editing, but it's great at both, and that's the point. Most enthusiasts who research before buying end up somewhere in this tier. It's the sweet spot between cost and capability. If you want a PC that you can use for work during the day and gaming at night without compromise, this is the level to target. Level 5. The Creator Build. This build is designed for people who make things. Video editors, graphic designers, motion artists, 3D modelers, photographers, anyone whose work demands heavy processing power. At this level, the CPU becomes the priority. You're looking at higher core counts, a Ryzen 9 or Intel Core i9, because creative software like Adobe Premiere, DaVinci Resolve, and Blender rely heavily on CPU performance. RAM also jumps significantly, often to 64 GB, because editing 4K footage or working with large files requires a lot of active memory. The GPU still matters, especially for GPU-accelerated rendering and color grading. But it's not the star of the show here. A mid-range GPU like an RTX 4070 is often enough. Without enough CPU power or RAM, video exports take a long time. A timeline with multiple effects layers becomes laggy and difficult to work with. With this build, those problems mostly go away. Export times drop. Playback stays smooth. You can work faster. One honest trade-off. This build isn't optimized for gaming. The GPU isn't the best for pure frame rates. If you try to game at 4K on a creator build, you might be disappointed. But for the target user, someone spending 8 or more hours a day in creative software, this is the right investment. The total cost is usually between $1,400 and $2,200. If your work is your product, this build pays for itself. Level 6. The Enthusiast Build. At this level, raw performance is no longer the only goal. Aesthetics start to matter just as much. This is the build that looks as good as it performs. You're now pairing a top-tier CPU, like a Ryzen 9795X or Intel Core i9, with a high-end GPU like the RTX 4080 or even RTX 4090. RAM is 64 GB or more, running at high speeds. Storage is fast NVMe with multiple drives. The case is carefully chosen for airflow and visual appeal. RGB lighting is planned and coordinated. Sometimes a custom air cooling setup or a 360mm all-in-one liquid cooler is added. This build handles everything: 4K gaming at high frame rates, heavy content creation, live streaming, and running multiple demanding applications at once. The before and after comparison here isn't just about performance. It's about how the build makes you feel when you look at it. A well-built enthusiast PC looks like a piece of art sitting on your desk. The lighting, the cable management, the component selection, it all tells a story. The downside is cost. You're spending between $2,000 and $3,500 for performance gains that, honestly, most people will never fully use. The gap between a balanced build and this one is real, but not always practical. That said, for people who spend many hours a day at their PC and take pride in their setup, the Enthusiast build is deeply satisfying. It's built for people who care. Level 7. The Showcase Build. Also called the Dream Build. This is the top of the mountain. There is no higher tier in consumer PC building. Everything here is chosen for maximum impact, performance, appearance, and exclusivity. We're talking custom water cooling loops, where coolant runs through precision-cut tubing across the case in a planned layout. The GPU is a flagship card, RTX 4090 or equivalent. The CPU is the most powerful available on the platform. RAM is 128 gigabytes or more. Storage is multiple high-speed NVMe drives. The case itself might be a premium chassis from Lian Li, Fractal, or a custom fabrication. This build doesn't just run software, it makes a statement. But here is the honest truth. Almost none of the performance gains at this level are practical. No game, no creative software, no workload a normal person uses will push this machine to its limits. You are paying for the experience of building it and owning it, not for meaningful performance improvements over level 6. Custom loops, for example, require maintenance. You need to refill coolant, check for leaks, and clean the system regularly. It is more work than air cooling or an AIO for performance gains that are often less than 5%. This build exists to be the best. Not because you need it to be, but because you want it to be. It's built to photograph well, to be featured in a build showcase, to represent a passion project. The cost? Anywhere from $4,000 to $10,000 or more. Sometimes much more. For most people, this build makes no sense. But for the people who build them, it makes complete sense. Anyway, I also made some other cool videos about PC components and hardware. Don't forget to check them out later. Okay,